How a financial institution can be a partner in your law firm's growth with Todd Hamblet, episode 192. Are you ready to make your law firm a profit-generating machine that will free up your time and skyrocket your impact? With more than 2 decades of business growth experience and having proven that you can be successful while prioritizing your family and your impact, introducing the Profit with Law podcast. I am your host, the creator of the firm differentiator 10x effect, Moshe Amsel. Well, hello and welcome to another amazing guest interview here on the Profit with Law podcast. I'm your host, Moshe Amsel, and today I have an amazing guest. Really excited about this because the title of the show is Profit with Law, and I titled this show because I come from an accounting background, and one of the reasons why I even got into serving law firms is because I accidentally fell into this industry. Some of you know this story, but if you're a new listener, you probably don't know. When I started my accounting firm, I aligned myself with a company, Profit First Professionals. I became a Profit First professional. Profit First is a book by Mike Michalowicz, all about how to manage your cash in your business. And it's a great book. If you haven't read it, please go and read it. You can go to profitwithlaw.com/Profit First, either Profit First or Profit First book. I forget which one. But I happened to get a referral through Profit First of a law firm, and that law firm became a client. They in turn referred more business to me. It became this thing where all of a sudden I had 5 law firms as clients, and I noticed a common denominator amongst all 5 of those law firms, and that was they had beautiful offices, they had staff, they had business coming through the door, yet they were transferring personal funds every payroll cycle to make payroll. And that really opened my eyes to the fact that here is an industry of professionals that really are good at what they do, but don't necessarily have the business acumen to understand how to manage the cash in the business and be able to run a profitable business. Hence, the Profit with Law brand was born. So I'm super excited anytime I have a guest that comes on that we can have a conversation around the financial side of the business. So that's what we're going to do today. My guest today is with a company called Fundbox, and I'm going to let him talk to us about his background and what Fundbox is. But more importantly, we're going to dive into a conversation around managing your cash and the cash flow and how to have access to capital and things like that. So I think this is going to be a great conversation. You definitely want to stay tuned. Before I introduce Todd, though, I'm just going to take a moment and share with you some messages from our sponsors. Let me share an exciting tool that I recently came across that is a game changer for law firms that bill hourly or by the project, otherwise known as flat fee billing. The 2020 Legal Trends Report published by Clio rates how important various items are in a client choosing your firm. You may be surprised to know that the third most important decision factor for someone choosing a lawyer is the ability to pay with a payment plan. The challenge that law firm owners face is the risk of a client not making good on that payment plan. Most attorneys don't offer payment plans because of that. The problem is now solved with LawFunder. LawFunder allows you to easily add a payment option to all your client invoices and retainer replenishment requests that does not require credit checks, applications, or any other complex process. The client's able to use their existing credit cards, allowing them to earn points and miles, access credit card specials on interest rates, and any other tools they use to manage their cash. When I saw this tool, I was blown away. Most importantly, it removes all the risk from the law firm and makes an easy and painless process to the payment process. So if you want to check off the box on one of the top factors in new client decisions, if you want to decrease your accounts receivable and get paid immediately, LawFunder is the solution. Go to lawfunder.com. That's lawfundar.com/profitwithlaw to learn more. No buzzwords, no jargon, no BS, just results to make your law firm grow. That's Legalese Marketing. Legalese Marketing is a full-service marketing agency for lawyers by legal experts and digital advertising specialists. Their goal?
to help your firm stand out in a competitive marketplace with personalized solutions to help your law firm attract the clients you want, backed by the systems to make it all work correctly. Visit profitwithlaw.com/legalese to learn more. This podcast episode is sponsored by Noda, powered by M&T Bank. You went to law school to be a lawyer, not an accountant. Take advantage of Noda, a no-cost IOLTA management tool that helps solo and small law firms track client funds down to the penny. Enjoy peace of mind with one-click reconciliation, automated transaction alerts, and real-time bank data. Visit trustnoda.com to learn more. Terms and conditions may apply.
Well, there you have it. Let's go over to Todd. I'm going to introduce Todd to you with his official bio, but then I'm going to let Todd just tell us who he is. Todd Hamblet is the Chief Legal Officer and Corporate Secretary at Fundbox. Todd joined Fundbox from Uber, where he held numerous senior legal positions, most recently as Assistant General Counsel for Global Corporate Transactions and Deputy Secretary. During his tenure at Uber, and among other things, Todd and his team were responsible for raising tens of billions of dollars in equity and debt financing, closing transformative M&A transactions, and managing a global corporate and governance structure. Before Uber, Todd practiced law at leading international law firms, most recently at Covington and Burling LLP as a Chief Legal Officer and Corporate Secretary. Todd will oversee all legal and regulatory matters for Fundbox. Todd, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Moshe. It's good to be here.
I really appreciate you making the time. You obviously are a busy person to come here and spend it with me so that we can share with my audience and hopefully help some of them to really further their business journey through our conversation. What I like to do when I start is just, people want to know who you are. We gave you this official bio, but tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up at Fundbox and what Fundbox is doing for small businesses, and then we'll jump into some specific conversation.
Yeah, happy to do that, and thank you for the very kind introduction. So I've been practicing for about 20 years now. It's been a very interesting 20 years. Lived through the dot-com bubble, then the financial crisis of 2008, and obviously the challenges we're facing currently. So I have seen and practiced through some very significant up cycles and then some downturns. So I've spent first 14 years of my career in big law firms, so on the private practice side. And then in 2014 had made a decision that I really wanted to pursue an in-house opportunity, and was very fortunate to get the role at Uber, where I was the first corporate lawyer to join the team. The company was well on its way to being a big success. So I stepped into a very active corporate practice over there on the in-house side. I helped build out a team over the years, and we were engaged in all of our various fundraising transactions, strategic M&A. At various points, I helped manage different teams as we looked to build out different business units. And it was quite an exciting adventure. I decided to leave in the summer of 2018. And as I looked for my next opportunity, I really did want to find something different outside of the sharing economy space. And as I talked to Eyal and Prashant and Sebastian and the team at Fundbox, I got really excited about the Fundbox mission, about helping small businesses access capital and grow. And so fortunate to join Fundbox in the spring of 2019, and here we are. It's been quite an adventure over the last almost 2 years at this point, with 2020 being a very, I think, challenging but eye-opening year for me. And I think the company, we've weathered the storm, and I feel really good about what we've been able to help achieve for our customers and also where we are as a company. So looking forward to this discussion.
Yeah, and Todd, it's interesting because you kind of like jumped into a hot seat that you didn't know you were getting into Fundbox just a year before needing to deal with one of the biggest financial challenges for small businesses, in our existence. So you definitely had, got your resilience tested. And one of the things that we're lucky to have had going for us is the rapid response by the government.
Yes.
And I know that, when they released the CARES Act and everybody was trying to figure out the PPP, I was at the front running of that, having discussions on Facebook Live and things like that about what the act allowed and didn't allow and the details. And, people were just confused about what the intention was and how they were to take advantage of it. So it's been a ride for all of us. And I think that there's two different ways we can have a conversation today. One is to talk about the past and talk about what happened. And the other is to focus on the future. And quite honestly, I like to focus on the future. So I'm going to avoid the whole COVID conversation for now. We may back into it later, but
Sure.
I'm more interested to know how my audience, law firm owners, are going to make progress in 2021 and 2022 and beyond. One of the things we just did at the time of this recording, it's before the event, but we're actually going to be releasing this post-event, is having the Law Firm Growth Summit, February 9th to 11th. And the entire theme of that event is helping law firms prepare themselves to be the firm of the future, to be able to understand how to be the next Netflix of law and not the next Blockbuster of law.
Right.
So in that conversation, one of the things that I think is important to highlight is that 20 years ago, when you wanted to start a business, any business, even if it was to start a law firm, you needed to have some serious money in the bank. You needed to have some capital to be able to take a lease, to be able to bring on staff, all the things that you didn't have technology. So there you had to take out an ad in the Yellow Pages when the Yellow Pages got published. So you had to time the starting of your law firm with when the Yellow Pages was going to get published, and then commit to a $2,500 or more per month expense right off the bat. So there's a lot of things that you needed in order to start a business. Now you can start a business with $50 or less. You buy a domain name, you throw up a web page and you're set. Right? You don't need an office. You don't need, you need a Zoom account. You could even go with the free account for 30 minute calls, just keep everybody under 30 minutes and you're good. So you literally can start a business with no capital at all. And what happens is that puts business owners in this really weird position where they think that they need to use their sweat equity to build the business. And one of the things that I've been challenging my listeners to do, and I've been talking about, is changing that mindset and recognizing that when you're starting a business, when you're trying to grow your business, when you're adding another area to your practice, you're thinking about bringing on an attorney, you shouldn't have to try to figure out how to go it alone.
Right.
You should be able to invest in yourself before the results happen. The best time to bring on a staff member is before you need them, not after you need them, because then it's too late. Your customer service is already suffering. You're being forced to hire somebody rapidly where you might be making the wrong decision about who you're hiring. So there's different things that you might want to do to grow your practice where you're waiting too long because you're waiting to have enough money in the bank or to have enough of a pipeline. And I think that lawyers don't understand the access that they have to capital and what it can do for them. So I want to go to that conversation and talk about what is available to small business as far as capital goes, what kind of lending is available to them. Nobody wants to put money on a credit card in order to hire a person. But if they were able to get a line of credit or get a loan to be able to get through that, then they could come at it from a good financial decision to make that move. So I'm gonna turn the mic over to you and fill us in on what options they have.
Sure. And appreciate, I think that I'll make one initial comment just about 2020, but one thing we saw is a large portion of our customer base, our customers in professional services. And so there was an ability to sort of translate, the workday, move to home out of the office. And while there was some disruption, I think the professional services providers tended to fare a little bit better. But you're exactly right. I have lived on both sides of sort of the financial approach to practicing law, both as a lawyer in a law firm, sending out bills, invoices, calling, emailing clients, trying to get paid, usually net 30. But there was always a cash flow situation there where you provided the services, but you haven't been paid yet. And now on the in-house side, being pursued by my advisors to pay my bills and working with my finance team to get the advisors paid. So I think the practice of law is a little bit, the manner of fee structuring and collecting payments, it continues to be a little bit archaic. This notion of you provide the services, you send a bill, and then you wait to get paid. And that, of course, locks up a lot of capital and cash that, there is uncertainty about how, am I going to get paid? I have to keep checking my bank account to see if that client paid me so I can make my payroll payment. And so what we're trying to do at Fundbox is create a relationship with a customer where we don't have a heavy, onerous onboarding process. You don't need to be a large client like you might need to be at a bank. We're able to very intuitively onboard customers, including professional services. We use our technology to analyze existing data. So your business bank account, maybe your accounting software, and we can very quickly, within a matter of minutes, in most cases, make a credit decision that will provide you with access, to capital, a line of credit. And then it's up to the customers really to determine how they want to use that. Do you want to use your line of credit to invest in hiring another lawyer for your firm? Are you trying to manage your cash flow? Are you in a little bit of a seasonal bump? So a lot of our clients have seasonality issues where, cash flow is better in, say, the spring and summer versus the fall and winter. So there are a lot of resources available for small businesses, including with Fundbox, that are able to provide access to capital in a manner that allows the professionals to focus on what they do best, which is be a lawyer, practice law, engage with your clients. You're not going to need to spend hours trying to figure out paperwork, going down to the bank, trying to find all your records to substantiate your loan request. And so I do think the thing that we're trying to do at Fundbox is become more of a partner. There's fintech was a shift, right? You could apply for a checking account by going into a bank and filling out paperwork. And then there was a shift. Okay, now you can do that online. Well, that's a step forward. It's more convenient, but that's not the ultimate problem that I think we're trying to solve. We do want to try to develop relationships with our customers so that we can be a trusted partner. So that we can provide access to capital and also think about what other tools could we help provide small businesses. Is there potentially an invoicing feature that would be convenient for a small business to use? Is there sort of a virtual CFO type of approach we could take where, if we have access to your accounting software, maybe we could help you figure out your cash flow, your credits, your debits, where you might need to be planning ahead. So that's the vision. We started as a capital access provider, but the long-term vision for the company is really to become more of a platform where we are looking to partner with small businesses who want a relationship. They're not going to call us every day, but they want to be able to pick up the phone and call somebody, maybe get a little advice, and not just have us be sort of a nameless, faceless provider of capital. And I think in professional services in particular, there is just a lot of cash flow locked up in invoicing, and that is one of the problems that we are looking to try to solve, and to help small businesses get paid quicker, or to provide access to capital in the meantime, so that they can continue to think forward on the business and think about growing the business, and not worry about, am I going to have the cash to make payroll? I know I'm going to have it 2 weeks from now when I get paid, but I have this commitment today. So that peace of mind and that access to capital is, I think, something that is really important for small businesses.
Let me share an exciting tool that I recently came across that is a game changer for law firms that bill hourly or by the project, otherwise known as flat fee billing. The 2020 Legal Trends Report published by Clio rates how important various items are in a client choosing your firm. You may be surprised to know that the third most important decision factor for someone choosing a lawyer is the ability to pay with a payment plan. The challenge that law firm owners face is the risk of a client not making good on that payment plan. Most attorneys don't offer payment plans because of that. The problem is now solved with LawFunder. LawFunder allows you to easily add a payment option to all your client invoices and retainer replenishment requests that does not require credit checks, applications, or any other complex process. The client's able to use their existing credit cards, allowing them to earn points and miles, access credit card specials on interest rates, and any other tools they use to manage their cash. When I saw this tool, I was blown away. Most importantly, it removes all the risk from the law firm and makes an easy and painless process to the payment process. So if you want to check off the box on one of the top factors in new client decisions, if you want to decrease your accounts receivable and get paid immediately, LawFunder is the solution. Go to lawfunder.com. That's lawfundar.com/profitwithlaw to learn more. No buzzwords, no jargon, no BS, just results to make your law firm grow. That's Legalese Marketing. Legalese Marketing is a full-service marketing agency for lawyers by legal experts and digital advertising specialists. Their goal? To help your firm stand out in a competitive marketplace with personalized solutions to help your law firm attract the clients you want, backed by the systems to make it all work correctly. Visit profitwithlaw.com/legalese to learn more. This podcast episode is sponsored by Noda, powered by M&T Bank. You went to law school to be a lawyer, not an accountant. Take advantage of Noda, a no-cost IOLTA management tool that helps solo and small law firms track client funds down to the penny. Enjoy peace of mind with one-click reconciliation, automated transaction alerts, and real-time bank data. Visit trustnoda.com to learn more. Terms and conditions may apply.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. I think that we all know that there's a timing issue when it comes to cash, right? You do the work, you got to pay the attorney or yourself who did the work, but at the same time, you're giving your client 30 days, or you're giving your client. Now, lawyers listening to this are going to argue and say, well, what are you talking about? If I'm doing flat fee billing, I'm taking the money up front. If I'm doing hourly billing, I have a retainer and I'm collecting money on retainer. But the reality is that most lawyers suck at asking their clients to replenish that retainer.
Yes.
And most of the systems that we have in place, like the practice management systems, still don't have the abilities built in to be able to put up a red stop sign and say, stop working on this account. They don't have any funds left.
Exactly.
Right. And that's really where we get into trouble, is mid-month when they ran out of money and we didn't realize. And now we come to the end of the month and we go and do our invoicing batch and suddenly realize, oh, okay, we've depleted the retainer. They owe us $3,500. And now the clients, they don't have that cash. They have to come up with it, and they're taking their time. You can stop work, but in some places you can't stop work. Some places you can't get away from serving that client. You got to just keep working and do it on a whim and a prayer that you're going to get paid for it. So there's definitely those situations. There's also other areas of law. There's, like PI, where, they're doing things on contingency.
Yes.
And, you have to do a ton of work before you get paid. So you get this big paycheck at the end, which is great. And it sounds wonderful, right? It's very appealing. Like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get them to settle. We'll take 30%, we get this big payday. But the reality is it took you 9 months to get there. It took you 18 months to get there. And you've had all this work that you've been doing along the way. So you've had to pay your staff, or yourself, or you had to pay for other expenses related to getting to that point. Where's that money coming from? Now, when you've been in business for years and you've been diligent about putting money away, you might have your own pipeline. You might have your own cash put away to be able to operate and run those cases. But if you're trying to transition to add PI to your business, or you're trying to increase the size of case that you're working with, then all of a sudden it changes the game. And now you need to make sure that you're prepared for that. You need to make sure that you have the liquidity to be able to make it through to that point where it settles, or you get a decision in court.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of examples where you can come up with, hey, we have a need for cash. But one of the things, Todd, that you told me that really stood out is what you're trying to do on the tech side to partner with businesses. And I will tell you, one of the things that a lot of my clients ask, and they come to the table with this question, is what percentage of my revenue should I be spending on marketing? What percentage of my revenue should I be spending on payroll? How do I figure out, because in the Profit First, which I opened up with, I'm a big fan of that system. It gives general percentages based on the size of the business as to how much you should be spending on operating expenses. But there isn't really any guidance within the operating expenses of what those percentages should be. So one thing I could think of, where you're in this virtual CFO role, your tool is giving automatic feedback to somebody saying, hey, in your practice area or in your market, it's typical for somebody to spend 20% of the revenue on marketing. We're noticing that you're spending 40%. So you're spending a lot more on marketing, but yet you're not showing better results. So you should really look into that. And now they can go and dive in and say, oh, that's what's broken in our business. We need to look at why our marketing is so expensive. Are we marketing in the wrong places? Are we using the wrong provider? What's going on? Not having known that, oh, everybody else is at a different place than we are, but being able to get that insight that you might have from aggregating that data amongst all your clients, you probably can give feedback that wouldn't be there otherwise.
Yeah, Moshe, that's a great point. And I will maybe take a little bit of a step back, but we have Fundbox has been around for 7+ years. And so we've invested very, very heavily in our technology and in our data. And so we have 7 years of data from customers. Of course, we use it very carefully under various privacy, laws and regulations. But you're exactly right. We can provide and we can review and think about how to create some reporting for small businesses, saying, look, we have customers in geographies that overlap. So to your point, one of the things we're looking at is how do we use this data to help small businesses optimize their approach in their market? And your example is a perfect one. So, if there were a reporting tool that would show, hey, customer A, we see that you're spending probably 40% more, or 40% of your credits and debits we're seeing are allocated to marketing, but we're not seeing you get any uplift from that in terms of your receivables. We see some of your peers are spending far less, and they are getting an uplift. So there are ways to use the data. So it was fundamentally, the data was used to help teach and train the models, the AI, so that we could do this underwriting. But where we've transitioned over the last year or so and heading into 2021 is how can we figure out how to create more and additional products and services that would be valuable to small businesses, particularly with professional, service providers, where our skill, my skill, hopefully, is in being a good lawyer. I'm not the finance guy. I'm not the marketing guy, but there are insights, there are reporting and reports that we could generate that help provide insight to help the service provider make a quick decision. You don't need to hire a marketing consultant and spend, thousands or tens of thousands of dollars on a marketing strategy. There is information in this data that could help you inform how to modify your practice, where to focus, what a strategy might be. And so we are working very hard into 2021, trying to figure out how can we utilize some of this data we have to help small businesses, including our professional services provider customers, optimize their small business. And one point I'll just kind of go back on your cash flow question is you point out, under ethical and professional standards, we, as lawyers, even if you need to collect from a client, we don't really just have the ability to stop working on a project, right? So, those cash flow issues can become even more acute as a result of, some of the professional standards and ethical obligations we have to our clients.
Yeah, and I learned that through working with clients. There are, depending on the practice area and depending on the state that you're in, some courts allow it, some bar associations allow it, and some don't. And depending on where you are in the representation of the client, sometimes even though you're not going to get paid, they will not allow you out of that relationship, which is it's a really tough place to be working from. And if you get stuck in too many of those, then how are you going to pay your bills and how are you going to make payroll? Unfortunately, that's not a good business model. You got to kind of figure out how to make sure you're not getting into too many of those situations. Which create, maybe create a better filter on the front end or come up with another model that will kind of make sure that you have some of that payment secured to the point where you're not running out too early with the client's funds.
Absolutely. And I would say one other comment here that we've recognized and through customer research is very frequently at a pain point in a cash flow cycle, small businesses will tend to lean on their personal credit. So they'll start, they'll think it's easier to use my personal credit card and I'll just pay myself back later. And so what we want to do is we want to help small businesses really keep that clear delineation between what's happening on the business side and what their personal finances are, because there's a reason you form a law firm as a partnership or an LLC for liability reasons. And, so one thing I think about, as I talk to my product and marketing colleagues is, how can we make this easier so that the default isn't, okay, I'll just pull out my personal credit card and pay this bill and figure out how to pay myself back later. So, that's just another thing that, we're thinking about how to empower small businesses is keep your business separate from your personal finances, and how can we design products and services so we can help enable that for our customers.
Yeah, and you bring up a really good point, because we're kind of, as small business owners, we're kind of backed into the corner with using our personal credit. Banks don't want to give us credit on the business until we have a track record of showing profitability. And if I was able to show extreme profitability that makes me credit worthy, then why do I need you? Right. So it's kind of like, in order to get going and in order to take that next step, it requires investment. That investment is going to show up as a lack of profitability until it pays dividends. So now how do I make the case for being credit worthy? How do I make the case for being, and it's a catch-22, and small businesses are really caught in that place. And you're left with very little choices. Like, what, I go get an SBA loan maybe. And even that is a lot of paperwork and very stringent requirements. And, it's not a slam dunk. Not everybody gets approved for that. So the options to be able to get credit, that's not tied to your personal credit, are limited. And that is a problem in the small business industry. And I don't know if you're going to be able to solve that, but it would be really cool if you can.
Well, I think, I do think that there is again, using the data and the technology and having this, this data set that we've developed, there's, we're able to make predictions, and there are industry models that we have, and there are times in business models we have, including, very short time in business. And it may be that, that the cost to access capital for a brand new business is more expensive than a legacy business, which, might provide a lender with more certainty. But an advantage of technology is that we can constantly review the data. So you don't necessarily have to raise your hand and say, hey, I want to fill out an application or apply for a new loan or apply for, see if I can increase my line of credit. We're able to do that utilizing the technology. So as your track record as a company, as a business, and you develop history, we're able to constantly underwrite, and in some cases proactively say, hey, we initially underwrote you for, say, a $5,000 line of credit 6 months ago, but based on the data we're seeing in your credit performance, we're able to offer you a $7,500 credit line. So I do think this is one of the ways that technology is hopefully going to continue to enable small businesses to grow, where we can be a little bit more proactive with the customer instead of just waiting for someone to walk in the door and fill out an application for, see if they can get a credit line increase. So yeah, very challenges all around, and it's one of the fun things about being at Fundbox is trying to figure out, what can we build next to help small businesses.
Right. And it's more than just the line of credit, the size of the line of credit, right? You gave the example of being able to proactively increase from 5,000 to 7,500, but the cost of that also, I mean, the players who play in that market, like the on deck and give me another example. Cabbage, right? So they make it fairly easy for somebody to get a line of credit to an extent, but then the interest rate is onerous, right? It's like you look at the paperwork and it's like 50% interest or something like that.
Yep.
Now the intention is not for you to borrow the line of credit. Let's say it's $15,000. The intention is not for you to take the $15,000 and then be paying interest on that all year.
Right.
I think the intention is to have you draw it as you need it, pay it back quickly. So you're not really paying the 50%, but you are paying it for the time that you've had that money out.
Correct.
But what would be really cool is if you're using the same AI technology to not only reduce the increase the line of credit as appropriate, but to also decrease the interest rate as good payments are happening and as the business is growing and those numbers improve.
That is all part of the model. You're exactly right. So rates can change, over time. We have a fairly short-term product at the moment. So we think that provides small businesses with flexibility with 12 or 24 week repayments. These aren't 3 or 5 year loans that people are repaying. So again, we're constantly thinking about what is the best. We're a business, we're in business to be successful too, but the mission is really to, how do we help power the small business economy and break down some of the barriers that prevent small businesses from moving forward? And I know we don't want to spend a lot of time on PPP, but it bore out again with PPP, where the big banks limited, their servicing of PPP loans to existing customers. So if you didn't already have that relationship, you weren't able to go to one of the big banks. And so, a company like Fundbox, and again, this is where, we flex our technology muscles. From a standing start, we were literally able to turn ourselves into a PPP lender under the SBA program in a matter of 2 weeks. So from qualifying to be a lender to doing all the back end mechanics to standing up an application flow, customer support. And so I think it's that nimbleness that and that eye to how do we serve these small business customers, and not just circle the wagons the minute there's a hiccup in the economy. We are really mission focused and helping to power small businesses and helping them survive and thrive is what we're all about.
Yeah, I think the big banks made a huge mistake when it came to PPP. I think that they alienated a lot of people, even their own customers. Like I had customers with Bank of America where they have their checking accounts with Bank of America, but their credit card is not. And Bank of America
Right.
required you to have both your credit and your bank account with them in order for them to process the PPP. It made no sense whatsoever.
Right.
And then I had clients with Chase where they were very quick to respond and very quick to put you in, but then they got caught in this. They were given too much money, or they weren't the wrong information was provided, so they got the wrong PPP processed. And then I bank with Capital One, they were too slow. By the time that they opened up their PPP applications, I was already funded
Right.
somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
So the big banks have made mistakes all along the way, and a lot of smaller institutions and people who have the ability to be nimble, including you, Fundbox, were able to rise to the occasion and show your value to the small business community, and we thank you for that and commend you. But I think it's, that's one example of that's not necessarily going to be repeated potentially. We don't know. We don't know what'll come down the road, but that's not, we're more interested in the day to day, and how does a relationship with you really help us with growing our business and being profitable and taking away some of the anxiety and fear in the role of the business owner. And I think that you're talking about the fact that you're looking for different ways to partner with businesses. That's the best place that you can be. It's you're obviously in it for the long run. You want to find solutions. And I think that those opportunities are there. You gave some really good examples of where, you keep your pulse on the business, you give access to capital, you alter that access as is needed. You give proactive advice. What if scenarios, you have data where you can turn around and you can say, hey, look, we every quarter we analyze how you're doing, and we notice that you have an influx of revenue. You might want to think about hiring somebody because your payroll now is a mismatch to how much business you have coming in, which means somebody's getting burnt out over there and you might not notice it. Like sometimes the numbers tell a story that you can tell from the numbers before the business owner recognizes that the need is there. And I think that's a very interesting place to be playing.
Yes, definitely. And the other thing, Moshe, I'll mention that it was a little bit of a surprise to me, but we've learned through our marketing that one thing that's really valuable to our customers is feeling like they have a partner. So they don't necessarily just want someone who can help them pay the bills or bridge their cash flow. They really want a partner. And they want to be able to pick up the phone. And I think we are taking an approach where that is our goal. We want to partner with you, and we receive value from that as well, because we hear from our customers what their pain points are. I don't want to have to check my bank account 3 times a day as I head up to a payroll run. Okay, that gives us an idea about what could we do, what could we build that maybe can relieve some of that stress for you. So the idea that small businesses are really looking for someone, they don't just want someone who can deposit cash in their account so they can pay bills. They really are looking for a partner. So maybe someone who can provide advice, maybe someone who can provide some tools, share some market intelligence, and not just have this sort of completely arm's length relationship. So that was a little eye-opening for me, and I think we really take that to heart as we think about what's next for our platform and how we can power these small businesses.
Yeah, I love that you're taking that approach and that you're thinking about it that way. And it's no surprise to me that that's what your clients want, that's what the marketplace is asking for. because we see that in the legal industry too. I mean, the Clio does a legal trends report every year.
Yes.
They survey the audience and say, hey, what are people looking for? And it's an eye opener to look at how is somebody choosing the attorney that they're going to use, and things like that, where suddenly you're surprised to see that the number one point of impact is how referrals and reviews, and then the number two is discounts and and deals on your pricing, and number three is payment plans. Like, who knew, right? And that last is having an office space.
Yes.
So getting that information, that market feedback, is eye-opening. And what's really exciting is that you're taking it and you're trying to figure out what do we do with this information now?
Right.
And how do we position ourselves to be that partner for you? And I have no doubt that you're gonna navigate that. You're gonna figure it out. And you're right. People want insight. My clients want to know. They understand that they should be focusing on the KPIs, but they don't know what are their KPIs. Like what are the indicators they need to be watching, and where do they need to be focusing? And those are the kinds of things that somebody like Fundbox can help with, where you can say, look, we've noticed that over 5,000 law firms, this is what drives revenue. If we look at these numbers, this is how we can predict that your revenue is going to go up. And this is how we can predict that you're going to be profitable. And now that tells us that you should be focusing on this number. That can be a really valuable place that you can play in the growth of somebody's business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And another area where we're focused, I'm glad you mentioned Clio. We have a partnership with them. So we're also looking, how do we maybe we don't have the resources to build it ourselves, but what are the strategic partnerships that we could enter into to kind of become a one-stop shop? So you don't, small businesses don't need to go to, 4 or 5 different providers. You can kind of come to one provider and they've built out a platform and suite of products. Maybe they're organic. Maybe the provider has built them themselves, or maybe it's been through a partnership. I think we like to stay focused. I think we know what we're good at. And if we have a partner who's really good at something we don't do, we want to make that available to small businesses as well.
Awesome. We're time flies when you're having fun. And I just looked at the time and I said, oh, wow, we're almost out of time here. We gotta wrap up this interview. It's been a great conversation. And I really like the approach that you're taking, what you're doing. So I encourage my listeners to definitely check it out. I'm assuming fundbox.com is the website you want them to go to. Is there anything else you want to share with them if they're interested in checking you out and taking the next step with you?
Yeah, you got it. And we are at fundbox.com. I think I would encourage your listeners to, check out the website. In addition to, the products and services that we offer, we also have a very extensive knowledge base where we have articles and, issues lists. So things for small businesses, even if you don't wind up pursuing an opportunity with Fundbox, we want to be helpful in the small business community. So there could be some resources on the website. Like during PPP, sorry to keep bringing it up, we were ranked number 1 in terms of our PPP descriptions in searches, in terms of the information that we had summarized for folks. So check it out. And, we're open for business. We never stopped originating during 2020. And we're looking to grow with your business.
Awesome, Todd. This has been a great conversation. I'm going to leave with one last thing, and that is, if you have one tip for a law firm owner out there that's listening to this episode, going into 2021, or now we're nearing that. By the time this gets released, we'll be nearing the end of the first quarter of 2021. What would that be? Wow,
that's a great question. The first thing that comes to mind is focus on what you're good at. Small business providers, lawyers, we're good at being lawyers. So look to find resources that can free up your time from an administrative perspective, like a capital provider, like an accounting software, like maybe a marketing tool, so you can focus on what you're really good at, which is being a lawyer. And that's where you're adding value to your small business. There are a lot of commoditized things on the administrative side. There are a lot of providers out there who have nice tools that you can utilize. And I would just encourage folks to, be smart about where you spend your time, and do your best to focus on what you're good at and what generates revenue for you, which is being a top-notch lawyer.
Awesome. I love that. And it's actually one of the things that I share with my listeners as well, is I don't believe that your best use of your time and abilities is to be spending on any of the tasks that you're not trained in or really good at. Rather, bring somebody on, pay them to do that, and
Yep.
keep your wheelhouse, stay in your lane, and do what you're best at, so that you can get profitable faster. Part of that requires them to be able to pay for those services. And I think that's a perfect example of the use of Fundbox, to go and get yourself a line of credit that will help you make these moves, because you have to make room for additional business to come in. And if you're busy doing your bookkeeping and you're busy doing your marketing, you don't have room on your plate to take on a new client. You're not going to seek the new client. And even if they came knocking on your door, you're going to send them to voicemail, and you're going to not answer the voicemail because psychologically you're like, I don't have room for another client. So you got to make room on your plate for those clients to come through the door. And the way that you do that is by investing in yourself. And whether it's, dipping into your own savings or accessing capital through a financial institution, you definitely want to consider which came first, the chicken or the egg. And you got to make the investment first in order to reap the results. So this is Todd. This has been a great conversation. Folks, appreciate you tuning in and listening. If you enjoyed this conversation, and this is one of the first podcast episodes of Profit with Law you're listening to, make sure to hit the subscribe button in your podcast player so that you get notified every time we release a new episode. We're here twice a week, and you have well over 180 episodes to binge on if you're just checking us out. But if you hit that subscribe button, you'll get notified when we come out with a new episode, which is every Tuesday and Thursday. And with that, I'm going to close the show out. Todd, I really, really appreciate you being here. It's been a great conversation. And folks, just keep your eye on profitability. Make sure that you're not spending more than is coming through the door, unless it's very, very purposeful. And with that, you're going to be able to continue to profit with law. We'll catch you next week.
Thank you for tuning into the Profit with Law podcast. Your feedback is extremely valuable to us, as well as helping us reach more people with this valuable content. Please leave us a rating and review in your favorite podcast directory. Join us again next time when we are back with even more strategies to profit with law.